Nancy had always been proud of the way she took care of herself. At 70 years old, she still enjoyed afternoon walks, Sunday brunches with her family, and tending to her garden filled with bright marigolds and fresh basil. She didn't smoke, rarely drank, and always believed she was eating smart, picking low-fat meals, choosing light soups, buying snacks labeled as heart-healthy. But over the past year, something began to change. Nancy found herself feeling more tired after simple tasks. Her ankles would swell by evening, her heart would race after climbing a short flight of stairs, and at her last checkup, her doctor delivered news she didn't expect. Her blood pressure was dangerously high. Nancy was confused. "I don't eat junk food. I don't add much salt to my meals," she said. But her doctor shook his head gently. "You're probably getting far more salt than you realize, and it's been silently damaging your body for years." That conversation changed everything. The truth is, salt doesn't need to taste strong to do strong damage. And even seniors who think they are eating healthy can be silently sabotaging their hearts, kidneys, and even their brains without knowing it. Today, I want to walk you through the hidden dangers Nancy uncovered, dangers that could be sitting right now in your kitchen, your pantry, your favorite healthy foods. Because recognizing these signs early isn't just about feeling better. It's about protecting your future, your strength, your independence, your precious time with the people you love. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll discover today could help you make small, life-saving changes that Nancy wished she had known sooner. And the first hidden danger she found was sitting quietly on her dinner table, disguised as an innocent part of everyday meals. Nancy thought she was doing everything right. She avoided fast food, cooked most of her meals at home, and even checked labels at the grocery store. But despite her good habits, she was unknowingly consuming dangerous amounts of salt every single day. It wasn't coming from the salt shaker she barely touched. It was hidden deep inside the food she trusted, foods that seemed harmless, even healthy. Her canned vegetable soup, labeled low-fat, carried almost her entire day's worth of sodium in just one bowl. The turkey slices she used for her sandwiches, advertised as lean and healthy, were packed with preservatives and salt to keep them tasting fresh. Even her favorite whole grain bread, the kind she proudly bought at the local market, contained more sodium than she realized, each slice adding up quietly over the day. Nancy's doctor explained that about 70% of the salt Americans consume doesn't come from the salt added at the table. It comes from processed and packaged foods. Items like salad dressings, breakfast cereals, cottage cheese, canned beans, frozen dinners, and snack crackers. Nancy remembered how she used to grab a frozen meal when she didn't feel like cooking. Only 300 calories, she would say proudly. But what she hadn't seen was the sodium content. Over 1,200 milligrams in one small tray, almost double what she thought was healthy. And the worst part? She didn't feel it happening. Salt doesn't cause pain. It doesn't cause visible symptoms right away. It builds silently, straining the heart, stiffening the arteries, burdening the kidneys, until one day the damage is too great to ignore. Nancy realized that trusting labels like low-fat, light, or even organic wasn't enough. She needed to look deeper, to check the sodium content listed in tiny print on the side of every package. It wasn't about fear. It was about awareness. Small changes, like choosing low-sodium versions, rinsing canned foods, and preparing more fresh meals at home, became acts of love for her own future. Because what you don't see can still hurt you. And the next hidden danger Nancy uncovered was already silently squeezing her heart with every meal she thought was keeping her strong. Nancy had always thought heart disease came from obvious things, like eating greasy burgers or never exercising. She had no idea that salt, something so small and familiar, could quietly be one of her heart's greatest enemies. Her doctor explained it in simple, powerful words. Salt makes your heart work harder every minute of every day, and you don't even feel it happening. Every time Nancy sat down to enjoy her soup, her sandwich, her little evening snack, she was unknowingly forcing her heart to push against more pressure. High sodium intake pulls water into the blood vessels, increasing the volume of blood. That means the heart must pump harder and faster just to keep the body running. At first, Nancy didn't notice. A little swelling in her ankles by nightfall, a mild headache that came and went, a sense of heaviness walking up a small hill. But over time, the extra strain wore her heart down. Her blood vessels stiffened, losing their flexibility. Her blood pressure crept up, inch by inch, year after year. And the scariest part was that she felt almost nothing until real damage had already been done. Nancy's doctor showed her how even a small but consistent excess of salt could lead to hypertension, this silent killer dramatically increasing her risk of heart attack, stroke, and heart failure without any dramatic warning signs. She remembered sitting in his office, staring at the chart showing how heart attacks don't always happen from one bad decision, but from thousands of tiny, invisible choices stacked together over time. Nancy realized that loving her heart meant acting before the damage became irreversible. She began paying attention not just to the salt she added, but to all the hidden salt already lurking in her daily meals. She learned that small changes, choosing fresh foods, cooking from scratch more often, flavoring with herbs and spices instead of reaching for packaged sauces, weren't sacrifices. They were victories, quiet acts of self-respect and protection. Because the heart doesn't send loud warnings in the beginning. It whispers. It struggles. And only those who listen early enough can give it the care it desperately needs. And for Nancy, the next organ silently suffering from her salty habits was even more fragile and even harder to repair once damaged. Nancy had always thought of her kidneys as something she didn't need to worry about. They worked quietly in the background, filtering waste, balancing fluids, doing their job without complaint. It never crossed her mind that the food she ate could be slowly overwhelming these vital organs day after day. Her doctor explained it gently but firmly. Too much salt doesn't just hurt your heart, it damages your kidneys, sometimes beyond repair. Every time Nancy consumed a salty meal, her kidneys had to work harder to filter the excess sodium out of her blood. At first, they managed. The body is remarkably resilient. But over the years, the constant burden caused tiny injuries inside the kidneys, small, silent wounds that accumulated like cracks in an old foundation. Nancy learned that when the kidneys are forced to handle high salt levels continuously, they begin to lose their efficiency. The delicate filters inside them, called nephrons, start to scar and harden. As the kidneys weaken, fluid and waste build up in the body, creating a dangerous cycle that pushes blood pressure even higher and further damages both the heart and kidneys at once. The worst part was that Nancy had no warning signs. No pain, no obvious symptoms at first. Just a slow, invisible decline until her doctor noticed slight changes in her blood tests. A hint of elevated creatinine levels. A sign that her kidneys were starting to struggle. Nancy remembered sitting at her kitchen table that evening, holding a cup of tea, realizing how fragile health truly is. How so many things she took for granted, clear thinking, steady energy, strong heartbeat, all depended on organs she never even thought about protecting. It was humbling, but it was also motivating. She made the decision to change while there was still time. She reduced her intake of processed foods. She drank more water to help her kidneys flush out the excess. She began seasoning her meals with lemon, garlic, fresh herbs, learning that flavor didn't have to come from salt alone. Nancy wasn't trying to be perfect. She was trying to be present, to be strong enough for more birthdays, more Sunday mornings, more laughter around the dinner table. Because the quiet work of the kidneys deserves respect, and the price of ignoring them is far too high. And for Nancy, the next lesson was even more personal. Because it involved something she never imagined salt could touch: her mind, her memories, her very sense of self. Nancy always believed that her mind was one of her strongest assets. She took pride in remembering birthdays, solving crossword puzzles with ease, and telling vivid stories from her childhood to her grandchildren. Her sharp memory was part of who she was, a living library of her family's history, her wisdom, her laughter. So when her doctor mentioned that salt could impact brain health, Nancy was stunned. She had never connected the food on her plate to the clarity of her thoughts. But the truth was undeniable. Excess salt doesn't just burden the heart and kidneys. It silently affects the brain's delicate network, leading to reduced blood flow, inflammation, and accelerated cognitive decline. Nancy learned that high salt intake can make blood vessels stiff and narrow, not just in the body, but also in the brain. Less blood flow means less oxygen and fewer nutrients reaching the cells that control memory, learning, and emotion. Over time, this subtle starvation can impair the brain's ability to form and retain memories. Research had even shown links between high-salt diets and an increased risk of dementia, a future Nancy desperately wanted to avoid. She thought back to small moments she had noticed recently. Forgetting where she put her gardening gloves. Pausing to remember a neighbor's name she had known for years. Feeling a little slower when following recipes she once knew by heart. Each incident was easy to explain away: distraction, a busy mind, normal aging. But together, they painted a picture she couldn't ignore. Nancy understood that while memory loss is influenced by many factors, she could take control of what she put into her body every day. Every meal was a chance to either nourish or neglect her most precious gift, her mind. She began focusing on brain-friendly habits, less processed foods, more fresh vegetables, berries, nuts, and omega-3 rich fish, drinking plenty of water, choosing natural seasonings like turmeric and rosemary instead of reaching for salty sauces. It wasn't about fear. It was about love for her memories, for her family, for the life she still had ahead of her. Nancy promised herself that no meal, no snack, no flavor was worth risking the moment she had yet to create, the conversations she had yet to enjoy, the smiles she had yet to share. Because protecting her brain started with protecting the simple choices she made every single day. And the final hidden warning Nancy learned to watch for was already quietly showing up in her body, sending signals she could no longer afford to ignore. Nancy's journey of discovery wasn't just about what she learned from her doctor. It was also about what her own body had been trying to tell her all along, quiet signs she hadn't understood until it was almost too late. Looking back, Nancy realized the signals had been there, hiding in plain sight. The swelling in her ankles by the end of the day, which she had once blamed on just getting older. The frequent headaches that came and went without explanation. The constant feeling of thirst, no matter how much water she drank. The creeping fatigue that made simple tasks feel heavier, more exhausting. Each of these symptoms, individually, seemed harmless. Together, they painted a much darker picture, a body struggling under the burden of too much salt. Her doctor explained how excess sodium causes the body to retain water, leading to swelling, weight gain, and increased pressure inside the blood vessels. He showed her how salt imbalances could disturb natural hydration levels, causing dehydration at the cellular level even when the person thought they were drinking enough fluids. And he warned that frequent headaches were often the brain's response to fluctuating blood pressure caused by hidden sodium spikes. Nancy thought about all the afternoons she had blamed her tiredness on a bad night's sleep or the heat. All the times she brushed off the tightness in her shoes as just a long day. She hadn't realized her body was speaking to her, not with shouting, but with whispers, asking for help. Armed with this new understanding, Nancy started to listen differently. She watched for swelling and thirst. She paid attention to her energy levels and her moods. She learned that every symptom, no matter how small, was a valuable clue, an invitation to care for herself more deeply, more intentionally. Nancy made gradual but powerful changes. She chose fresh foods over canned. She read labels carefully, choosing options with less than 140 milligrams of sodium per serving whenever possible. She became curious about what her body needed, instead of just trusting old habits. And as the weeks turned into months, Nancy began to feel lighter, more energetic, more present in her own life. Her ankles didn't swell as often. Her headaches faded. Her mind felt sharper. Her heart, quieter and steadier, beat with a strength she hadn't felt in years. Nancy learned that real change doesn't happen overnight. It happens one meal, one choice, one small act of love at a time. And now, before we finish today, there's one final truth Nancy discovered, a truth that could make all the difference for you too. If you're still here with me, it means you care, just like Nancy learned to care for herself again. And that simple choice, to listen, to stay curious, to believe you can still protect your health, is the beginning of something powerful. Nancy's story isn't about perfection. It's about awakening. It's about realizing that every small decision, every bite, every label checked, every moment of paying attention can either quietly harm or quietly heal. Salt was never meant to be the enemy. It was meant to preserve, to season, to enrich. But today, hidden and overused, it has become a silent danger for so many who simply didn't know better. Nancy couldn't change the choices she made yesterday, but she took control of her tomorrow. And so can you. Every meal you prepare with fresh ingredients. Every time you swap a processed snack for a real food option. Every glass of water you drink instead of a salty packaged soup. Each small act is a victory, a statement that your heart, your mind, your kidneys, your future are worth fighting for. If anything in today's video felt familiar, if you recognized even a whisper of your own journey in Nancy's story, please don't wait. Start now. Talk to your doctor. Look at your pantry with new eyes. Give your body the care and respect it's quietly asking for. And if you found value here today, if you feel even a little more empowered or a little less alone, I would love for you to stay with us. Subscribe to this channel. Like this video. Leave a comment sharing your experiences or the first change you're planning to make. Because together, we're building a community where wisdom grows stronger with every heartbeat. Where hope isn't something you lose with age, it's something you gain. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for caring enough to take this journey with me. Take care of your body. It's been taking care of you longer than you realize. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and stay open to the beautiful possibilities still waiting ahead.